D.C. K.O. #1, event time. Let's talk about it. D.C. K.O. is set to be a 5-issue event mini. Story-wise, it's following off of the DC All-In Special from 2024, wherein Darkseid was killed, but actually went on to create the Absolute Universe. His end in that story enabled him to leave the main universe and form the Absolute, and D.C. K.O. gives a lot of details as to how. There's a lot of information given in this issue lore-wise, as well as it very much sets up the issues and stakes for this event, and then it has some action beats bookending it. I want to get in-depth in some areas, but stay casual in others, so spoiler warning, but I'm not going to reveal absolutely everything. But if you don't want to know anything, then be forewarned. For forewarned is forearmed. I'm Sasha, this is Casually Comics, and it's time to look at D.C. K.O. #1. This comic is written by Scott Snyder with art by Javi Fernandez, for the most part. Hermione does the interlude, who you may recognize recently from the mainline Green Lantern books, and the colors are by Alejandro Sanchez. This comic has two openings in a way. The first place is one that takes place in the present of the story, and then everything else is going to have to catch up. And the first one is taking place right before the setup of the star qualification for the tournament. It also opens on Superman, a brawl like countless ones before. A contest, a game to win. Hell, for this one, everyone even got to bring gear. Clark brought his Knuckles. He forged them in the fortress years ago after returning from the dead. Knuckles with miniature suns raging inside. Angry suns taken from empty universes. I mean, they better be empty, Clark. He thought about calling them Dawn's Day Knuckles, but Lois shut that down fast. In his heart, he still calls them that. Chapter 1 is called Into the Ring, and the story is broken up into 3 chapters. Each one is covering a specific part of the build-up. Now, following the title page, we get to see a games night where the Trinity and Lois are playing a board game, and it features their own superhero personas as game pieces. It's a bit of foreshadowing to the role that they're going to be playing in the tournament, and also the fact that overall one could look at that a bit as a game. It sets up the attitudes towards the tournament, the relationships between the Trinity, and also how they're going to want to play. They play on as they do. They talk as friends, family, not colleagues or heroes. They joke, they talk about their children. They discuss private things we'll return to very soon. An hour later, the game is still not over, though they're all within a few spaces of the watchtower. The finish line. Some people may be wondering if this means that this is also going to be the Trinity who's going to be towards at the end of the game. They're like, ooh, how far are we foreshadowing? Now their game is interrupted by Darkseid, who is everywhere and huge and destroying everything. The scale that he's given in the 2-page spread really does sell the size of him, and you get more than one spread like that. The one where he's stretched across the panels in different locations is a fun one visually, and it also allows for a quick conveyance of information as to the scope of destruction he's wreaking in an interesting way, which works because this comic has a lot to get to, so sometimes it has to condense things. This is also the first big action sequence, though it turns out to be a bit of a fake out one in a way. It is more of a foretelling of things to come, but that, because of some time travel shenanigans, have not yet arisen, even though they have. They happened, but because the Quantum Quorum was able to go back in time, they haven't yet. Now those kind of moments are definite miles may vary for some. Some are never into the fight that one is witnessing is not actually happening. Some enjoy it, some it depends on how it's implemented. Now as mentioned, this information is being conveyed by the Quantum Quorum, though they are not the narrators. What was witnessed was the end of all things because of Darkseid, and they have 7 days to stop it from happening. It's already happened, so they need a plan. Now, in the mainline DC All-In books, they've been building to this for a while. However, some books have been doing more heavy lifting than others, such as Superman and Justice League Unlimited, which had storylines and even a special building up to this, which for those reading would already have them up to date on the Quorum and the rescue of Booster Gold, as well as the Darkseid Future and Darkseid Legion. But it is possible to just jump in and read this without having read those. Those provide additional information and also can add to the universe stakes. But this can serve as an entry to what's going on. Also, there are some editor's notes, but they're very vague. They just say things like, Aquaman. Which Aquaman? You'll figure it out. I mean, you will, but at least the year, just something. Help the people. What if they're reading it years later? Now, chapter 1, the top end of this issue, deals with a lot of the exposition and lore explanations. It answers what's going on and why the heroes can't respond to it in certain ways. It also acknowledges the New 52 in a very interesting way. When the idea of tapping out by restarting the timeline is raised, just Control-Alt-Delete it, we get this. Not that long ago, a being did this very thing. Here at this inflection point. Restarted you all, restarted everything and everyone. Eventually, as you know, this timeline was reabsorbed, but for a brief period, it existed outside larger reality. So they're referencing Dr. Manhattan and Doomsday Clock things there, but it's really interesting that they cite this moment now as the inflection point. So some light retconning there, also working in Doomsday Clock, which is always interesting to see because the Doomsday Clock experience as it was coming out, because it was so delayed, is very different than how it's been implemented since. It flows a bit more seamlessly now, as always time recording. Right, and how'd that turn out for us again? To quote the gorilla, nope. If you did this, would we even remember? Be the same people? No. All would be new. Now, some may appreciate the light tongue-in-cheek shade referencing how the New 52 was generally received, although it must be stated the New 52 has begun to be reevaluated as time has gone on, and more people who started entering into comics from that era are now coming up and discussing it. And in general, there were some high points and strong storylines from the New 52. It's just always interesting to see how works are received in their time, after, all of those things. I find it fascinating. Also, there's a bit of reassurance slipped in there, which is the idea that that's not what they're going for. Not a reboot, not a reset, no crisis. This isn't King Crisis. You know DC, sometimes you gotta clench up because you know they're not afraid of a hard reset or of taking time to explain things. Time for recording the DC All-In era, there's been a lot of tightening up of the lore, not just in the absolute verse, but in the mainline as well. They've been publishing the new history of the DC universe, which is explaining the status quo of things time for recording. In this book, there's one really valuable page as it pertains to the creation of the absolute universe. Time Trapper has World Forgers show the heroes the creation of the absolute universe and explain it and its naming, and why it's relevant for the heroes in this universe. At Apocalypse's core is an infernal machine, a heart that runs on Omega energy, the energy of conquest, absorption, control. And when Darkseid saw it eons ago, he became its champion and was transformed into the enemy you have fought so many times. From that moment on, he sought to turn Earth, reality's greatest source of alpha energy, into a new apocalypse. And so when he formed his new universe, he placed a heart of apocalypse at its primordial Earth center. All Omega energy in that realm flows to him, making him absolute. It's also what we call the additions of some of our books, so we get a double naming bonus. Thus, he has become that universe's King Omega, the personification of all its Omega energy, a walking singularity that transforms all around him. There's a Sigma joke in there, but in all seriousness, one thing that DC of this era has going for it across the board is the fact that it is strengthening up all its ties and taking the time to explain things in a cohesive and coherent manner. These initiatives and events, there is always the potential to have new people come on board, and there have been a decent amount of new people coming on board, at least it's been said anecdotally and the like, and so these kind of pages are helpful. They don't work for everyone, and for some they feel they're too much exposition, but there are others who really appreciate such concrete and concise explanations. It just feels that there's an intentionality, particularly surrounding the absolute universe, but also radiating outward, just really keeping the lore in control. And these kind of moments are helpful for those who are interested and invested in that. Now, of course, there are some who feel that DC gets way too up in its own lore and history, and so for them, this may not be an enjoyable moment, and they may wish that it was not happening. Mileage varies. Now, as mentioned, Earth is transforming into an apocalyptic-type planet, and as they have to do something, Batman proposes a solution rather quickly, which is that one of them should become the King Omega. He was just waiting. It was right there. The comic is very rapid-fire at points, kind of a go-go-go energy. Gotta set everything up to get to the crux of the event. So Batman's plan. One of the heroes can claim the Heart of Apocalypse and become King Omega. I could not keep saying Heart of Apocalypse without thinking about Heart of Darkness, even though I know it doesn't have to do with that. Or does it? If one of them becomes King Omega, they can defeat Darkseid and then fix everything. However, there is a catch. In order to become King Omega, one must become like Darkseid. And also, they have to fight each other. Which, again, right off the bat, some people are tired of heroes fighting heroes, so it really depends, whereas some are just down for a tournament. Let them fight. Test your might. The heart is sentient, and so seeks to protect itself, and only have one worthy get there. And that protection is contest-themed. And in theory, according to Booster, the winner would become a celestial being and hence be able to forge the universe in the way they saw fit, which, if promises are kept, will be exactly how it was. Although maybe with some resurrections. A live Alfred would be nice. What this means for this story, however, is that there is the floating promise that any damage that occurs can be undone. A kind of get out of jail free card. However, we'll see how that ends up working out, because there are some twists introduced at the end of this that may jeopardize that. Superman is not into this plan, and he looks thoroughly disgusted. The art in this on certain panels really conveys emotion very well, like how traumatized Booster looks, and he's gone through a lot. They say he was trapped in the absolute universe for eons. It's a rough time to be Booster in this story, for more reasons than one. Now it's up to Wonder Woman and Batman to convince Superman that he needs to go along with their plan. No one's got a better one. The interactions between the Trinity in this are some of the standout ones. When you have a book with so many characters, some are going to be written in ways that feel more in keeping with their general tone than others. The core characters like the Trinity have that feeling. Certain characters, it varies, such as Sassy Gorilla Grodd, but there's also the fact that there are jokes layered in here. And when some characters have jokes applied to them, again, it works based on their base personalities, and with others, less so. Although some may feel that Sassy Grodd is best Grodd. They also keep referencing the fact that Superman enjoys playing games where everyone wins. He's not coming to my games night. Now this brings us to chapter 2, and the remaining chapter pages are done in these large black expanses with the text descending in a stylistic and at points aggressive manner. Chapter 2 is all about the preparation for the tournament, these 7 days. So for these 7 days, the heroes have to go through the laundry list of things that could get in the way of the tournament. However, the way they handle certain things does raise some questions, such as they send out T-spheres to round up all the villains, which if one lingers on it too long does raise the question of then why they ever struggle to find them ever. Granted, most were incarcerated, and Mr. Terrific does acknowledge some moral qualms. It just made me ponder. There are some go with it moments in this. The idea is to get to the tournament, and some of the minutiae, the details, if one gets stuck lingering there, they could fall down rabbit holes. Now the page of all of the villains being found is another nice montage set of panels, which again facilitates more time for other things, like addressing world leaders, companies. They're able to get the companies, which many of them run, to band together and make mega arcs, which if one thinks about it is a good idea in general. They should keep those around because everybody wants to mess with Earth for some reason. The 4th day that they spend with their families is also nicely laid out. In general, this is a well-paneled comic. The slower moments are given chances to breathe. The action sequences get frenetic, but that's deliberate so that the action isn't stagnant but feels a bit chaotic. With all their setup and prep done, it's time for chapter 3, which is the heroes heading towards the heart and the tournament, which then brings us back to where we came in. Chapter 3 is the kicking off action portion of the story, as the heroes need to fight their way to the portal to even qualify. This is the section where you start to lose some people and where the salt may begin to flow for faves, such as the opening death, which is Billy Batson in his child form, which is harsh for some that may be a bridge too far. Others may chuckle a little bit. He didn't even get to finish saying Shazam. Really, he should have said it before they left. Now in a tournament setting, there's always going to be a little bit of salt. It can be fun, although there are some who take it too far. But in general, there are always questions of who should have made it or who didn't and why, and that kind of energy and discussion is part of what this work is going for. And it's trying to balance that with some of the more introspective moments, largely centered around Clark. Clark throws himself at the Omega Demons. Heat vision, freeze breath, kill-a-ton punches. My mind kept wanting to say Colossian, and that's not a word. The knuckles burn. He tells himself he's doing it, competing. But if you look at him, really look, he's not. Now, Clark keeps being referred to in this issue. He's the one who's having the conflict with the tournament. He's the one who the story opens on. He's the one who the omniscient third-person narrator keeps referencing most directly. However, as of issue 1, he doesn't feel fully focused on as of yet, and that's most likely because this issue has to do so many other things. Going forward, it'll be interesting to see how he moves even more into the fore, if he does. Chapter 3 is also where they hit you with the most surprises in terms of who gets in, who doesn't, who gets hurt. There's one moment with Batman that some may find very satisfying. It depends how you feel about Batman. Although there are more Batman things coming, so you will see more of him. He's got to fight his Robins grown up as Batmen. There are some things that people may already have seen, especially if they explored the brackets, such as the fact that the villains arrive. We also get the reveal of the narrator, which is the heart of Apocalypse itself. They did say it was sentient. You also get what was for me an exciting panel, which was a tease of absolute things. Although there may be some who may be thinking, no, it's too soon, keep them separate. Don't cross the streams. I keep seeing comments on my absolute videos about how Darkseid is cooking. Let him cook. Also, that wasn't a pun. It was just a sentence. I'm trying to control my unfunny Darkseid is jokes. Now, there is a fairly large twist at the end, which I will not put in this video, but you can discuss it down below and I'll talk about it with you. No, I don't know why I'm drawing the line there either. I just am. However, that one really does raise the stakes and also raise some interesting questions. The issue has a bracket at the end, and so people who enjoy that can really have fun with it and place their hypothetical bets, maybe actual bets. I don't know what people are doing. Also, if one likes action beats, the action sequence has this fun flow that has a guided freneticism. It's fun to linger on the pages to see just what happened to everybody. These kind of moments in snapshot, but at the same time, there's so much else going on. Complete side note, I'm annoyed that Harley was there in the initial drop of Heroes, but that's a personal preference. Who do you wish had been there or not been there? Leave your thoughts down below. But with the competitors set, that is D.C.K.O. #1. This is a bit of a longer issue, so there are many things I did not go over, so if this intrigued you in any way, it's definitely worth checking out. In general, it's always great to check things out for yourself because any discussion, video, review, analysis is going to come out at foregrounding the things that the creator is most interested to or drawn to, and so there are going to be things that don't get as foregrounded or discussed. So as always, it's worth checking out for yourself to help form your own opinion. If you're curious, I would say this definitely is worth checking out. Issue 1 is doing a lot because it has to set up a lot. It has a lot of housekeeping because it's also trying to be as self-contained as possible. So it needs to explain the premise in a comprehensive way. It needs to provide a brief explanation for the status quos of the heroes. It needs to lay out some of the tournament rules, set the stakes, and also prep the universe as well as possible. Plus, kick it off. And it does do all that, although in certain arenas it feels a bit crunched doing so, mostly in the decision-making arena. However, it utilizes the art to slow the pacing or speed it up at points, so it manages to utilize the medium itself in some useful ways. The breakup of the action from the dark premonition at the start to the tournament commencement at the end means that the story feels balanced action-wise. And the dialogue throughout is peppered with lighter exchanges at moments, alongside the more serious ones to try and achieve a non-dour atmosphere, which could easily arise with a threat of this magnitude. And now here's where some of the intent of the event comes into play. Scott Snyder has discussed at length, including an interview we did on KO, that the goal of this event is twofold. One, to be engaging and fun for fans. Two, to set up the next coming arcs following it at DC. So does it do those things? And can one get into the issue without knowing that and come out with that as the impression? Or if one goes into it and is into the idea and is intrigued by the concepts it's laying down in general, even without knowing the intent, I would argue yes. Although of course if you disagree, please put it down below, I'd love to discuss. The tone, particularly at the end melee mad dash of the tournament, has several of the kind of jokes that highlight one should approach this at least partially through a let's enjoy ourselves lens. Look out, obscure character in a massive limelight event coming through, I'm at extremely high risk of death. It has moments of bombast, tempered by more flippant action beats, but also some more serious moments, both action and otherwise. So a lot of this is going to come down to whether or not one enjoys the tone and is engaging with the action, whether they find the tournament and the reasons behind it compelling. The fact that it is trying to have a bit more of an upbeat, action-paced energy against this kind of threat may make it feel to some that it's pulling in too many directions. They may wish that the tone were more one way or the other, whereas for others, they may appreciate its attempt at balance. And it's embracing of what it is, a giant tournament. And some may not mind that it's skewing a bit more in the fun direction, the more entertainment side style of things, and not leaning so heavily into the more introspective, although those moments are there. And again, it's issue 1, so we'll see where it goes. Also, some may feel that's moving a bit fast, while others may appreciate how much does happen here. Now, in terms of the tournament element, there are some who that is right up their alley, and so they may just be chomping at the bit to get there. Issue 1 laid the groundwork, now let them fight. Now, as for the setting up the future bit, those segments are there and peppered throughout. It starts off in chapter 1, and then you have more moments building upon that for the rest of it. These segments are strong, but they don't overstay their welcome. Some may feel that one whole page is too much, but in the grand scheme of things, it did move along very quickly. And the outro sequences are more of a tease as to why one should come back, a hook. It teases a meeting with the main line in the absolute. It connects threads that have been seeded from 2024. So it's rewarding for those who have been reading everything, but it's also not overwhelming for those who haven't. It feels contained and also takes the time to explain things. It also seems to be attempting to disrupt as little as possible, although if one is a character with a book who ends up in the tournament, they're gonna have to fight in December. That's fight month. Overall, I'm very curious to see how people take it. I personally very much enjoyed the lore elements, but if anyone has been here for a while, that should be no surprise. I'm a big fan of the history of DC and unraveling it and examining it and the changes that it makes to itself. Not everybody is, and I totally get that. Just in general in this, there's nice sentimentality and fondness for the mainline universe that comes through. Now, another reason people may not be able to get behind this is the elevation of Darkseid. Him being this universe-ending threat may not be appealing to everyone. Also, the terms of the contest, some may not be into the heroes being so keen to engage in it with so little pushback overall, fearing that it may lead into an unexamined version of the end justifies the means. But of course, it's issue 1, one has to see where things go. Now, while Clark is important to this, he doesn't feel as foregrounded or centered yet as he seems to be meant to be. But again, for the last time, this is 5 issues, so when you're just looking at issue 1, how things sit and where they're paced inside of that one issue can end up changing in the grand scheme of the entire event, which is why context is king, not Darkseid. I'm so cheesy today. I woke up on the corny side of the bed. For me, this issue made me very curious as to what's coming on the other side. I'm personally less of a brackets person, but I think the fights will be fun because some of the matchups seem to be intriguing in their seeming randomness. So all of these are just my thoughts, and I want to hear yours. Are you into this? Are you excited for it? Did you read this issue and enjoy it? Is it not for you? Too much bombast, too much of DC conceptually playing with its lore once more? Are you just eager to see them get down to fighting each other? Your thoughts? I want to hear them. Please leave them down below. While you're down there, please all YouTube things like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the bell notification so that you never miss a vid. Ooh, hype. Thanks so much for taking some time to spend discussing comics with me. I always appreciate it, and I will see you again soon. Bye-bye.